Hello there, and welcome to episode 9 of
The Peach Basket.
Waiting for you there. It is November 19th, and it is a Monday. And we haven't really decided on a day to kind of settle in on with these podcasts, but we will eventually, promise. But for now, it's just going to be willy-nilly. And but when we do, we are doing them every week.
Willie Nilly was a good basketball player.
You're thinking Willie Nelson. And he didn't play basketball, he was a singer.
Yeah, you're right.
I can understand why you had been confused. But yeah, we've been doing weekly at least. It's just sometimes a different day during the week. And you know what? If you're listening to this in 2021 or 2022, none of this matters. But hey, you can listen and find out what was happening in the NBA in 2018.
That's not what you're... Oh, yeah, it is.
Wow. You should lower your mic because you have to lean up to talk into it.
I can't actually lower it because of the arm.
Okay, give us a second, folks. I'm gonna lower his mic for him just a second. Oh wow,
the arm's pointed the wrong way to lower it. It's not going. It's not a matter of.
Lord have mercy on all of us.
We'd have to flip this entire thing and.
Okay, cancel that. We'll let Steven lean up.
I feel like Tay-Zonde.
I lean up to the mic to speak. See, the thing is we don't have video on this one, so the folks at home can't see the humor in this. Sadly.
Well, next week we'll set up the mics better.
Okay. We kind of did this willy-nilly. This is going to be a quick episode because, it's not really late, but old Steven has to get up very early. He's a working man, and he works at...
Not full-time podcast yet.
Yeah. We're making a little bit of cash. Not off the podcast, but in our lives.
So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit, quickly, like I said, about some different teams struggling, some dissension in the ranks. I've been saying that a lot, and I really wanted to say that. We're going to talk about Boston versus Toronto, kind of what's going on there. There's been some things unfolding. We're going to talk about LeBron a little bit. We're not going to talk about Butler, even though me saying that in and of itself is a bit of a paradox or a contradiction. We're not going to talk about Butler, but I am talking about him by saying that.
We're boycotting Butler.
Boycotting.
Yeah, fun. All of a sudden.
Yeah, something happened. And we're going to talk about Melo, how to kind of relax in certain situations to be mellow.
Yeah, like Carmelo Anthony does.
Yes, he's a good example of that, and his name reflects it. Yay for him. So we're just going to start by talking about so in the beginning of this, or even before the season, in the preseason, we made some predictions for how things would go, and for the first 2 weeks or so, it looked pretty good, other than the fact that the Raptors were doing better, I think, than Steven predicted. Boston was maybe doing a little bit worse than he had predicted in the get-go, but you weren't worried. You had said, they'll
the
fall
Rockets
in.
were doing much worse, and they're starting to even out.
This is true.
I think the full season will still tell the same picture.
Yeah. So, but I guess the main story right now that we wanted to talk about is the Warriors, and they're kind of having a rough little stretch. So, what's going on there?
Well, obviously, Curry being injured is the biggest thing, but even beyond that,
they still have superstar, they have Durant, they should still be winning, right?
But also, Draymond's been missing games, and then that big argument that happened between Draymond and Durant, that obviously took a toll on the team. When I've been watching the last few Warriors games, partially because of what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Durant's body language, it reminds me of Karl Anthony Towns when he was not getting along with Butler. Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to last or they have to trade. Oh, yeah, sorry. That they have to trade one of them or anything, but it just seems like his body language is I don't want to be here.
Okay.
He hasn't made a shot.
Let's give a little context. So what happened was there was a game. I think this is kind of what led up to that. There being some, tension between Green and Durant, and it was at the end of a game. No, it was the end of going into the half. Was it, or was it the end of the game?
I think it was the end of the game to win.
Okay, so
against the Clippers.
Yeah. Okay, so Durant was kind of in the backcourt. Green, did he get the rebound?
I think he inbounded it to Green, or no, wait, it was a rebound, I believe, and then
Green ended up with the ball, was dribbling down the court. Durant was clearly calling for it. Durant is known for game-winning shots and having the confidence to take them. I think in this situation he was wanting to do that. He was calling for the shot very clearly. Draymond completely ignored him and
fell over and lost the
ball. Durant was clearly really frustrated. I don't know if this was at the end of the game because I remember, and then they went and sat on the bench and talked for a while. I was watching the highlights of this.
I could be wrong then.
Check it out. But then it kind of showed them go sit on the bench, and Durant was really frustrated. They start arguing. You can't hear what they're saying, but Green and Durant start arguing. And Klay Thompson comes and sits between them to kind of try to settle it down. And that, to me, wasn't the first of those kind of situations happening. You could tell when that happened that maybe there had been some frustration from Durant towards Green. I don't think this was the first time Durant had gotten frustrated with Green. It's the first time we've seen it to that extent. But to me, it looks like a player who's been kind of... okay, Steven's just playing a little high, or not highlight, but review of the game there. Yeah, so I think Draymond kind of runs the team. He's a really strong personality. So what's this? So it looks like... Oh, it is the fourth. Yeah, so here goes Draymond dribbling the ball. Loses it. Falls over. Okay, so it was on the bench after the game. So maybe I was watching a different clip. Maybe when they were sitting on the bench arguing, that was a different clip. Because it looks here like there wasn't a bench situation. Can you look that up? Can you look up like Draymond and...
Is this the Look Up podcast?
Hey, well, I'm still talking while you're doing it. So it's not like we're just like clicky noises. Yeah, there it is. So you can see they're on the bench there. So it says full video. So that is that after the missed or the fall over?
Yeah, it looks like the same play.
I think
it was like a shot to win the game, basically.
Yeah, that's what confused me, because usually when you miss a game winner, you don't go sit on the bench. Usually you go back to the locker room or whatever. But like Durant goes and sits. And I'm giving you a play-by-play of what happened. So Durant goes and sits. He's clearly frustrated. The guy tries to give him a water bottle.
He's pointing at himself as if he should have taken the shot.
Yeah, he's saying he should have given me the shot. So there's Klay Thompson comes over. And you can see Draymond already leaning into Durant, kind of like chatting him up. Who knows what he's saying? Probably saying...
Looks like Jaren Collins is trying to calm him down.
Yeah, so you'll see in a couple seconds here, you won't see, the people listening, but Klay Thompson stands up and goes and sits between the two of them. I think you could sense this was going to get a little more intense. So anyway, we don't need to keep watching it, but that's the video I saw, and you can see them yapping at each other there. So you can see Draymond kind of saying, and he's clearly fired up, saying some things to Durant. Durant smiles there and kind of laughs something off. So
I think the report was that he said something along the lines of like, "We don't need you. You should leave the team."
Wow, that's great. You can see him pointing to himself there, kind of saying like, that's on me, or you should have passed me the ball, or that's. I don't know what the coach said. Didn't you say that?
The coach was like saying push the pace and like seemed to be indicating that he wants to do what Draymond was doing. Mm-hmm. But like Durant's also the star player, and like it's difficult for a team like that because they kind of have lots of stars, and like you said, Draymond's kind of the de facto point guard with Curry out.
Yeah, so Curry's out. Just to keep the context for listeners, he's injured, and they've played how many games without Curry right now? He's been out 4 or 5 games. And they've lost how many in a row?
They've only lost 3 in a row, but they before that it was a win, a loss, a win, a loss.
Yeah, so it's been iffy. And that does not sound. It doesn't sound like the Warriors, but I mean it's in some ways not surprising.
Oh, sorry, it went overtime. That's why they were still there after.
Oh, so it could have been a winner.
Yeah.
Durant could have potentially
lost in overtime.
Right. Okay, so they ended up losing in overtime, but that's why they went back to the bench and sat down. So that clears that up. But so that was a loss. Then they beat the Hawks, but then they lost to Houston. They lost to the Mavericks, and they lost to the Spurs.
Houston's a good team. The Mavericks aren't. The Spurs are okay, and they beat the Hawks, who are an awful team.
And before that, they had lost to the Bucks, and early in the season, they lost to the Nuggets. So yeah, not shaping up to be the season that we kind of predicted, where we were saying, it's going to be some great basketball, watching one of the best teams ever. Not to say that they're not still, but who knows what's going to happen? What do you think will happen? Do you think they're going to kind of fall apart? Are they going to get it back together? What's going to happen?
I think they'll resolve whatever argument that was. I think they won't be able to keep everybody because of salary. I don't think it's going to be because.
But we knew that anyway.
Yeah. So I think they'll probably split up Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, but not because whatever argument. I think that happens a lot behind the scenes more often than you'd think.
Sure, big personalities.
But like I said, Durant, his body language hasn't looked like he wanted to be there. Like, I'm not saying he will leave the team. I just mean the last few games, that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
he's shooting,
you can tell.
He's an amazing shooter. He's one of the best shooters of all time, and he's shooting the last 4 games. Got to crunch the numbers. 1 for 17 from 3.
Wow, yeah, that's
like,
definitely
he's
not
still
like
having
Durant.
like a good game by anybody else's standards, because like he scored 33, 29, 20, 32, 26 with like lots of other stats. But again, he's not being efficient, and he doesn't look like Durant. Like he really does. Like he looked a lot like Karl Anthony Towns did with Butler when he was having his argument.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting study in kind of sports psychology, and I think we've talked about that a few times because I'm interested in that subject. But it just shows that when a player, whether he's feeling, frustrated, he's not feeling confident because he has a player on his team that he knows is out there that doesn't really have his best interest in mind, which matters a lot, because then a player just kind of plays with an edge, chip on their shoulder, but not necessarily a chip on their shoulder against the other team to win, but almost a chip on their shoulder against the game they're playing, which is not good.
We didn't mention that Draymond's the one who got suspended. Kevin didn't. So a lot of people thought that was like management saying we're backing Kevin and not Draymond. Yeah. Which I think is kind of if that's what's going on, I think that's a bad move, because Draymond's the guy who's been loyal to the team for so long. He was their leader before Durant was there. But I don't know. And he also missed the last 2 games with a sore toe or something.
Draymond
so the
did?
struggles are like also because 2 of their all-stars are out. Like maybe we're reading too much into it. But Durant himself seems to be struggling is a bigger point.
Yeah, so they are struggling, and maybe we're reading too much into it, but there is more going on than just that. There is some dissension in the ranks. But not just for the Warriors right now. So that we've kind of talked a little bit about that, and I think we'll see what happens there, but it's interesting. And this is why basketball is my favorite sport. I think you never one player
dribble up and down the court.
What is that a reference to again?
It's that song, Basketball.
The like basketball.
Yeah.
Who's that by?
Curtis Blow.
Of course.
Lil Bow Wow made a version of it for
We're playing basketball.
What's that movie he did?
Lil Bow Wow did Like Mike or something?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I like the way they dribble up and down the court. Such a good lyric. Doesn't get much better than that. To be honest, that's probably the thing I like the least about basketball.
Yeah, too much dribbling.
Yeah. I think we need to make basketball more like volleyball. No, I'm kidding. I like it.
But yeah, to your point, so I'm looking at just the headlines. I searched John Wall on my Google.
So the Wizards
was recently fined for yelling profanities at Scott Brooks. And it says John Wall and Bradley Beal both available for trade scenarios.
Scott Brooks is the coach.
And
what's going on with the NBA
they're
this year?
5 for 11 right now, and people expected them not to be a great team, but to be a playoff team in the East.
Yeah, John Wall's a good player. What's going on there? Frustration? Why is he? Well, do we know? Do we know why he was yelling at the coach?
I think they just thought they'd be a better team than they were, like for the last few years, and eventually they're just like, hey, we need to change something. I think it's just frustration of them doing bad is why he swore.
And Wall blames the coach. Thinks he's maybe running plays that.
I think he maybe blames everybody other than Wall, because he's a great player who's not really on a good team right now, and Beal's an okay player too. Dwight Howard can have a good game here and there nowadays.
Yes, Superman himself.
But again, people are taking early season struggles too seriously. It seems like.
Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Well, so you made a comment earlier, not on the podcast, but while we were picking up some coffees, that you think it has a lot to do with social media and the fact that we see these things now, whereas in the last many years where there wasn't social media involved, we didn't necessarily hear about these little...
Yeah, I think there was these kind of arguments in the 80s and 90s. You even see interviews where people talk about how, not everybody got along with Jordan in the locker room, not everybody got along with Kobe in the locker room. They're extreme examples because of the types of players those guys were, but I think
it's nothing new,
right? But we're NBA is becoming more like WWE by the day.
Okay, isn't everything
just there's a lot of storylines that I think these are real storylines, but they play them up to be this is what we're actually watching. Oh, what's going on between when Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook returned, people, the media was acting like they were going to fight or something.
Yeah, and then they, did what normal
I think they, hugged.
Adults would do, and they were like, we're buddies. Yeah, I think they built that up a lot.
They want to sell a game, so they make up storylines, basically. These things actually happened, but arguments happen. There's a lot of emotions involved in a basketball game.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Winning is very important to these guys. Their whole lives, they've been told that winning's everything. You have to win a championship, and if Wall is
and their reputation,
he's one of the best point guards, and he's not even getting close to that, he's going to be frustrated.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a player like Wall, who's a really good player, and if he was on a team with a lot of support, would do really well. But when he's not, I think he probably feels his reputation's on the line a little bit, where people are going, well, how come they're not doing as well? And they put it all on him.
Well, look at Kemba Walker. He just had a 60-point game. He's been playing great all season, and I don't think he's a household name by any means. Even basketball fans, they've heard the name Kemba, but they don't think of him when they think of great basketball players. And obviously, he can put up 60 points.
Wait, what was the point you were making with that?
A lot of these guys aren't getting the reputation. It does affect their careers to be on a team that doesn't.
Oh,
get
that's
the
what
press.
you're saying. Okay.
If he was on, I don't know, the Lakers right now, then he'd be one of the most famous basketball players in the world. But
right.
I think small market teams should be competitive, and we should find a way to make them competitive. Otherwise, it'll always just be the Lakers.
Any ideas there? You probably do have ideas.
Well, I
sneaky
just think,
ideas.
I guess the salary cap's already a good idea. That seems to be what keeps it that way.
Yeah.
But how do we make it so small market teams are more popular? I don't know. They need a player like Anthony Davis because.
So players, but do you think it helps? So as an example, the Raptors picked up an ambassador who is also a famous rapper. Do you think that's a good idea, or is that sensationalizing crap as well? Is that kind of being not really, he's not a basketball player. They're oh, our ambassador is this famous rapper, Drake, for those who don't know what I'm talking about. So he became the ambassador for the Raptors, and he would just be at games, and he was a famous person, not a famous player, that they tried to attach to the team to kind of raise the profile.
I think that kind of helps, but if whatever rapper is from
well, it can't be just any
New
rapper.
Orleans, if he, I guess there's Lil Wayne's from New Orleans, if he said I'm the Pelicans ambassador, I don't think that would really make people think oh, New Orleans is the great basketball city now.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Master P, maybe.
No, so I think
Master P was in the NBA.
Yes, he played for the Raptors. Did he do anything?
I think he was just in preseason games or something.
Yeah, I do remember that though. And then didn't he play in one of the All-Star games or something, or his son did?
Him and his son both played in the most recent celebrity game, yeah. And his son did pretty well because I think his son was a decent college player.
Didn't Ice Cube's son play in a celebrity game?
I think he might have been in the same one.
I feel I remember seeing that.
Lil Romeo was actually a college player and was
good. Actually quite good, yeah. Is that who I'm thinking? There's a player who was a really good college. Was it Lil Romeo that I'm thinking of?
There's
I feel
the
guy
from Migos, Quavo.
Yeah, that's
really well.
yeah, Quavo.
He's a shorter guy, but he seemed to play well.
I remember seeing highlights of him maybe playing street ball or something.
I think J. Cole, he dunked in one of the, it was a couple of years ago, but he dunked in the celebrity game, which is kind of always cool if you're just a celebrity and you can dunk.
So did Usain Bolt.
Well, that's a little to be expected.
He's 6'7" and the most athletic dude ever. What is he doing now? Didn't he switch sports?
Usain Bolt? I think he's just retired.
No, he started playing something else.
Oh, did he?
I'll look it up. But anyway, this has nothing to do with we're going off on tangents. I guess Steven's looking.
We can start with the next topic. So Wizards, I think it's overblown. I think actually they do need a trade, but not because of any argument, because their team's not winning.
Oh, wow.
Apparently I have a home phone and it's ringing.
That's the first time that's ever happened. Are you actually going to answer it? Oh, he's not going to answer it, he says. Oh, gosh, he hung up. What if that was, I don't know.
I've never given that number to anybody.
What if it was the president and he needs your help? Oh, wait, the president right now, you would refuse anyway.
Oh, it depends what he needs my help with. Just because I think he's not a great president doesn't mean I wouldn't help him with, I don't know.
His car was stuck in the snow outside.
No, I was thinking, with something good, because, a bad president would still, probably try to help hungry people.
We just lost followers because you said you'd help Donald Trump. We lost the 0 followers we had. What does it say about him though? What did he? So sprinter. There's something. I think maybe it was soccer. Maybe he started playing soccer.
I don't know. I don't see any articles about it.
Yeah, look, that's him on a soccer field.
2-week deadline to join new football club or call it quits.
Sorry, I said soccer, but yes, football. Yeah, that was what I had heard, that he was going to play football. European football, not American.
It seems like most of these articles are saying that it's just
it didn't happen or something. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is like that's a shot of him on a
like being fast is probably important, but like the main thing
handles,
is being able to
bro.
deke people out and get the ball in the net.
Anyway, let's move on. What were we talking about? So
we were talking about the Wizards unrest. Do you have any more?
No, let's move on.
So Boston versus Toronto. So
heyo.
They played their second game. This one was in Boston. It went to overtime. Kyrie Irving had an amazing game.
He did.
Tatum had a great game.
He did.
Hayward had a great game.
He did.
And they won in overtime at home. So,
yep, that is true. I thought it was a good game as a Raptors fan. So, again, I like to give context to the listeners who haven't listened before. Steven is a Boston fan. I'm a Raptors fan. So, we kind of had this.
So far, I think their two games were the two best games of the season, in my biased opinion.
Sure.
There were two really close games for teams who might be in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think it's a good preview because you can't say definitively right now if they had like a best of 7 who would come out on top, because I think they're both good teams. I think the game that the Raptors just lost against the Celtics, the Raptors played pretty bad against the Celtics playing really good. And yet they still went to overtime. So to me, that gives me confidence that if the Raptors have a good game against Boston, I think they'll win it in general. But I'm also a Raptors fan, so I'm biased.
Get out of here.
In the Boston accent? What's a Toronto accent? No. I don't want to No, that sounded British all of a sudden. Anyway, no, I will not get out of here.
I just think Boston, they're still trying to find themselves. They're still a new team.
So are the Raptors.
Like that Hayward wasn't playing last year. He's still getting better. Jaylen Brown's had a good season so far. Like I think they haven't played to their potential or even close to their potential yet this year.
But I think you could argue the same for the Raptors because I think they're still gelling with Leonard, and Leonard still isn't playing to his full potential. I think they're still looking at figuring out how to utilize all their players the best they can. All of a sudden they have Siakam, who's coming up as like this amazing player.
Are Siakam and Ibaka and Lowry playing beyond their potential right now though?
Beyond their potential? I don't think Siakam is. I think he's still going to get better.
Okay.
I think Ibaka is playing probably maybe the best Ibaka. Like he's had a couple games where I think that's the best Ibaka can play. There was a game that I watched where I don't remember who they were playing against, but I think he was like 7 for 7 or something at one point. And no, he's been playing really well. So maybe he's kind of playing. But the game against Boston, Lowry did not play his best basketball by any means. So he's been struggling.
0 for 7. Yeah, the last 2 or 3 games he's been doing very bad. But up until then in the season, he was doing so well that that might have been the reason for their great start. Is Lowry was kind of.
And we'll see as the season goes on. But I think I'm not worried. I know going into the game, so my dad's a Raptors fan as well, and he was kind of expressing that he kind of wanted to go into the game thinking, well, maybe Raptors will lose, and he wanted to like set himself up to not be disappointed. And I said, well, let's just, as a fan of any team, I think you should just go into the game wanting your team to play well. Yes, if it's in the playoffs, that's different. But in the regular season, I just want to see my team play well and have a good regular season record. But if they lose a game, that's not hugely devastating to me, especially when I think they're losing a game against, in my opinion, the second seed in the East, and probably your opinion, the first. I mean, not by the statistics, but who you think is the best team. I think you
by the end of the year, I still think Boston will probably be the 1 seed.
Yeah, and there's a good chance Raptors will be 2, if not 1. So I think these will be the two teams that will hopefully see each other in the playoffs, and I think that'd be great. I would love that. I think it'd be good basketball. And really, at the end of the day, is that not what a fan wants?
Yeah, definitely shaping up to be a good series if this is the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, there's a couple other teams who could maybe upset one of them.
Yeah, like
the Victor Oladipos.
Or the Atentacambos.
Yeah.
So they're currently sitting in second, the Bucks, and their record is 11-4. Pacers in third, 76ers in fourth, and Celtics right now in fifth. But I can honestly say, like when I watched the Celtics game, I thought when the Celtics play this well, it's going to be tough for any team to beat them. Really, like that when Kyrie, if you're listening to this and you saw that game, or go back and watch the highlights, when Kyrie goes off like that, it's pretty amazing to watch.
It looked like championship Kyrie in that. Was it game 6 he played that he just kind of, I don't want to say carried LeBron, but LeBron wasn't having his best night and Kyrie scored 35 or something.
Yeah, and he can do that. And he becomes almost like a half machine.
Well, he can just get to the basket so easy, and when he gets there, like, he's not going to miss a layup. He shoots it high off the glass. Nobody can block it. Like, I don't understand how he doesn't do it more often, because when he's playing like that, it just seems like, okay, he can dribble around everybody or dribble through everybody and get to the basket and make a layup every single time. Like, it doesn't seem like it's an obstacle for him. But
yeah, and I'm always curious about why players can do that at times, but then not consistently. And I think it does have a lot to do with the psychology behind the game, how they're feeling, he was playing at home. So that's another thing you got to remember, is that game was in Boston. I don't think the Raptors have beat Boston in Boston since like 2014 or like something 2017 maybe. I don't know, last year or the year before. It's been a little while anyway.
They haven't ever played in the playoffs though, have they? Not that I recall recently.
No, I don't know. You'd have to look that up. But anyway, so yeah, playing at home, Kyrie went off. It was pretty amazing to watch, making everything. And as a Raptors fan, I just kind of thought, well, there you go. That's fair. I think when the Raptors or when the Celtics play like that, tough opponent, very tough opponent. I'm still waiting to see Leonard really go off. I don't think he's really had he's had really good games. He's been playing well consistently, but I'd love to see him but he's never really been that player. I guess.
I always found with Leonard, like even when he was having great seasons with the Spurs a couple of years ago, like it wasn't, he had to have a 60-point game and then a bunch of 20-point games. It was just like 25, 25, 25, 25.
Yeah.
And
defensive stats as well. Yeah. And I'd prefer that, to be honest, because I think the Raptors need the consistency. And hopefully that rubs off on Lowry, because I think, he's struggled with
part
consistently.
Of that might have been the Popovich system of kind of giving everybody their touches.
Yeah, and it does look like, comparatively speaking to Dwayne Casey, Nurse seems to give everyone more of that than Casey did. It felt like Casey was always rotating players to try to find a winning combination. And it seems like Nurse has settled in a little bit more on letting players play it out and see how
Monroe's been like pretty good when like the couple games where either Ibaka or JV wasn't playing. Like Monroe seemed to kind of step up.
Yeah, I think the fact that they have him as like a center that can come in and help out is huge, because he's a really good he's been around for a while, so maybe he has the ability, let's say. Are you looking him up? What are you doing? What?
I was showing the NBA all-time scoring list.
Is that where we're going to next?
Yeah, we're talking about LeBron next.
All right, well, yeah, let's move on from the East and Boston and Toronto's. What am I trying to say? Boston and Toronto matchup, the Boston and Toronto rivalry.
Yeah, we might go in person to the next one. Either way, there's 2 more games to go, and then hopefully a playoff series.
Yippee! All right, so moving on. LeBron with the Lakers, but so something just happened recently.
So he just had a good game, his best game on the Lakers so far. The first 50-point game on the Lakers, he had 51, but since Kobe's going away party, 60 points. And not only was it a 50-point game, he shot 19 for 31. That actually is worse than it looks like, because I think before garbage time at the end of the game, he was shooting like 17 for 23 or something.
Yeah, you were updating me on the stats
and saying was shooting like a crazy percentage, and like they weren't easy shots. He was 6 for 8 from 3. There was a lot of deep twos. Like he was just making everything, and really making it look easy. Like it didn't matter. Like every defender looked too small for him, and obviously can't put a bigger guy on him because.
And they got the win too, so it wasn't just he went off with a bunch of stats and they lost, right?
Yeah,
which is always
also
important,
his first win against the Heat since he played for them.
Right, so he kind of had a little bit of a probably point to make there.
And Josh Richardson got mad and threw a shoe.
Heard that, yeah. And I think we chatted about how you think throwing a shoe is better than throwing a mouth guard. I think probably
you shouldn't really throw anything at the audience. They're paying to watch you play basketball.
If you had to throw one or the other, you had to.
I think I'm more grossed out by a mouth guard. Like it depends how hard you're throwing it, because you could actually throw a shoe hard enough to actually hurt a person.
Who throws a shoe?
But like it didn't look like he was throwing it hard enough to hurt anybody. So
you'd have to be pretty close to hurt someone with a shoe. I think if you're up in the stands.
Yeah, he was just tossing it up. And again, like I brought up the point, like sometimes when a player has a good game, they actually toss their shoes up to the audience to
as like a souvenir or a keepsake. Yeah,
right. And
in this case, it was in anger. But if he had a smile on his face and had tossed
it to a kid,
whoever
caught that shoe probably thinks it's pretty funny.
No, because they just couldn't enjoy it because it was done in anger. They'd have to burn the shoe. Anyway, so
but LeBron also recently passed Wilt Chamberlain in the NBA's all-time scoring. He's now, this was a few games ago, so he's now something like 80 points ahead of him. Or sorry, yeah, that's math. 79 points ahead of him, and he's closing in on Michael Jordan. So
you just said for all-time points in the NBA, but that's not what he just passed him for.
Yes, it is.
Well, he's number 5 there, and Wilt was number 6.
Yeah, he just passed him.
But you said passed him for all-time points.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that go to Kareem?
No, he passed him to be number 5th in all-time points.
Number 5th. Oh, okay. It just, the way you said it, it sounded like you were saying he passed him to be the leader in all-time points ever.
He just passed Wilt Chamberlain.
Right. He passed Wilt Chamberlain in the all-time points running, which is 1 Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, number 2, Kobe Bryant, number 3, and Michael Jordan, number 4. So he's right behind Jordan.
Yeah, he should pass Jordan if he doesn't get injured, probably January, February. If he scores about 27 points a game or something.
So in the GOAT argument, people are going to use that for sure. They're going to say, well, there you go. He passed him in points. Do you think that's valid?
I think him passing him in points has nothing to do with it, but I think he probably is the greatest player of all time now. Like, I think he's not even a scorer. I think he's, like, if he was such a good passer and he didn't pass so much, he would have passed him in points 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have averaged 35 points a game if he wanted.
He's also played in the league longer than Jordan did, though, hasn't he?
That's true, but I think that's a knock against Jordan. Like, I think him leaving for a few
years... You can argue
years,
that, yeah.
Like, that's less production on the basketball court.
Right.
LeBron's longevity is another reason he's maybe above him. Like, I think it's close, but I think LeBron is just passing him.
Yeah, yeah. I still go with Jordan. And I just, all around, I would, if I could see one of the players play at their prime, I would still pick Jordan. There's something, and to me, it's a little bit about style. I used to skateboard a lot, and the best skateboarders weren't always the ones that could do the best tricks, or it was those with the best style that seemed to make it look easy. Jordan, just for whatever reason, still had that style edge, I think, on LeBron. But I can't argue that LeBron is not an amazing basketball player. I don't know if in my mind, I don't know if he can ever pass Jordan, but I think that's just because I'm a slight fanboy.
Well, I think that's sort of the attitude, is just like, oh, Jordan's so great because I loved watching him in the 90s, but like realistically, he's not as good a basketball
You got
player.
My number, bro.
Like, they both came into the league not good at three-point shooting. LeBron fixed that and became a great three-point shooter. Jordan was still bad by the end of his career. Like, he didn't really improve. Like, I know that doesn't necessarily say you're good or bad because he was great when he came in, but like, I just think LeBron, like, he came into the game, he couldn't really post up. He added that to his game. Then he added shooting to his game. Like, I think it's just amazing what LeBron's been able to do since he came into the league, because he came into the league a great player, but not a complete player. Mm-hmm. And I just think...
But did he ever win a dunk contest?
People care too much about scoring. No, he never entered a dunk. He also never lost a dunk contest.
I kind of wish he had entered a dunk contest.
I think the only argument, or maybe not the only argument, the biggest argument I hear for Jordan is, 5 rings, or 6 rings, sorry. 6 rings, so... Like,
I think there's several other arguments, but...
Like, I think 6 rings isn't an argument at all. Like, if you look at Jordan's team after he left and went to play baseball or whatever, I think they still had 50 wins the next year. You look at any team LeBron's ever left, Cleveland's like 2-13 right now. The first time Cleveland had a similar record, I think they were like the worst team in the league the year after he left. It seems like him leaving his teams has made them the worst team in the league after making the finals. And Jordan leaving the Bulls, they almost made the finals anyway. Like, they were a 50-win team.
But I think the Bulls without Jordan were a better team regardless of whether, even if LeBron had played with the Bulls and won championships and then left, I think the Bulls would still have remained just as good.
That makes the ring argument worse, because it's saying, the Jordan's better.
He played for a better team.
Yeah, he had a better team. That's why he won more rings. And he didn't have to play against the Warriors. Like, there weren't really a team like the Warriors back then.
But the Bulls still didn't win a championship without Jordan.
That's true, but they didn't win a championship without Pippen.
But Pippen didn't win a championship without Jordan.
But Jordan didn't win a championship without Pippen.
Right. But
Jordan got into the league first and always got exited like in the first or second round.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if Cleveland, if LeBron had a Pippen, they probably would have had the same amount of rings. Or potentially.
At least, yeah. Or up until the Warriors.
So it would have been a more fair comparison.
Right. Like, I don't think rings really means anything. Like, it means something. Like, obviously winning the championship's the goal for every person, but it's a team award.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't, I wouldn't argue ever that that Jordan did it alone, or that when he left the Bulls, they weren't still a good team. He had a good team. He had good support. I think LeBron didn't. And he still... I wonder sometimes if you switched roles, so if Michael Jordan had played for Cleveland and had this less support, would he have stepped his game up kind of like LeBron did and maybe still potentially won maybe one championship?
I'm not sure if he could have won a championship. Like, I think he could have with the Heat team. Like, I think the Heat team was the best team in the league at that time. I think it's amazing that LeBron won one championship against the Warriors.
Oh, it is. I agree. Yeah.
Like, anybody you put into the Heat team, like, I think they were almost the best team without LeBron. Like, and their team, the Heat, like, obviously
they didn't have the best
had a lot
chemistry,
to do with Whiteside, and they still had Bosh and Wade. But the year after he left the Heat, they were still, I think, almost a playoff team.
Still
they
pretty
were like
good,
40 wins or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the debate will probably go on until the end of time, to some degree.
I just think the no shooting is really what kills Jordan. Like, it
wasn't necessary
and stuff, but if he played now, it would be.
Yeah,
like, people wouldn't look at him as.
And if he played now,
he'd be just like a better DeRozan.
If he couldn't add that to his arsenal, but maybe he could.
But
we don't know because he didn't have to. Well, how hard did he really try? He didn't really have to.
I mean, he tried shooting them and made 20% of them.
And to compare him to DeRozan, I don't know. Like, I like DeRozan, but I don't
said
think
a better DeRozan. Like, he's obviously
much better DeRozan.
But like his skill set's similar of where he shoots the basketball. And
but he's way more
how
efficient.
How much of a passer he is, how much of a rebounder he is.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know.
Whereas we'll never know. More like a Magic who can score.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I don't know where to go because we're at an impasse. We have to agree to disagree.
Like, I'd say Jordan's the better scorer, but I'd say Durant's the better scorer than both.
Not right now.
Not in the last 5 games, but
you're so far from your mic.
Yeah, it's so high up.
You're gonna have a sore neck tomorrow, and you're gonna go, "Why is my neck sore?" And then, oh yeah, giraffe podcast.
So we had one last little segment here. We'll just touch on it quickly because
we've already been talking for like almost 40 minutes.
Yeah, and it's not that big a segment. Like,
no, we should have ended with the LeBron and Jordan one because we're like ending on a lower note.
Yeah, so
sorry guys.
Carmelo was cut by the Rockets finally. We said he probably will be. Now he is. The discussion now is like, does a team want him? What team is he going to go to? Mm-hmm. I think LeBron was recently in an interview where somebody said, "Hey, do you want is Carmelo going to the Lakers?" And he said, like, "We don't even have a free agent spot."
Right.
Like, it didn't seem like he wanted him or thought that was even a question.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it would necessarily benefit the Lakers right now. They kind of have young players, and then they have LeBron, and they don't need to add somebody else who's kind of an older guy who is maybe kind of come off the bench and fizzle out really quickly.
Yeah, is he any better than Kuzma right now?
Probably not. And Kuzma has a ton of potential to get a lot better.
Kuzma minutes and
So so this is kind of he's in no man's land. He's kind of just floating around waiting to see what happens.
Right. I think the Rockets didn't give him enough of a shot, but that being said, I don't know what team should sign him. I think some team should give him a veterans minimum just to play around with him. Like maybe a team that's sort of on the cusp of contention.
Right.
Like no team wants to mess up their chemistry, so like just a team. Well, Detroit has Blake Griffin already. I'm just looking at teams that are sort of on the cusp. Maybe the Magic, if the Magic want to make the playoffs, like. But then again, like, is he going to take Aaron Gordon's minutes? Like, you got to find a team that doesn't have a 3 or a 4.
But he could come off the bench for Gordon, couldn't he?
Yeah, but then he might eat into Mo Bamba's minutes, and I don't want that.
So you'd be liking Bamba.
That's true. Maybe the Hornets, like, they have sort of a mix mash of 4 and 5 men. They have Batum and Jeremy Lamb at the 3, but I think he could play the 4 for the Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
There has been some talk of maybe Boston signing him. I think Brad Stevens is a great coach and can find a role for him. And I think right now in Melo's career...
You want to see that?
I wouldn't mind it because I think right now Melo, like everybody's saying, oh, he's like he's a bad teammate. He's not willing to take a smaller role. I think he's probably reading those articles and saying, I can do that. Like,
you think?
Yeah, I think he could probably... He'd do it just to prove people wrong, basically. He'd
getting into
get
Melo's
an
head.
where he's doing pretty well.
Maybe we should just do a podcast called "Getting into Melo's Head." But we could also talk
do
about
you want him on the Raptors?
Like,
I think the Raptors have enough for.
You asked me that last week, I think.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, and I think I said no. Because I said I don't think there's a place for him, and I think they have enough young players who are.
Their threes are all really good defenders, and he's not.
Yeah, I don't think he would help them at all right now. So no, I don't want Melo on the Raptors. As much as like nostalgia tells me, get Melo on the Raptors because I remember
they had Olajuwon.
Yeah, Carmelo Anthony, like he was kind of, we talked about last week around the same time as LeBron James. So I remember I'm probably around the same age as them. Am I? I think.
Yeah, I'd say around the same age, maybe a little bit older.
So when I had hoop dreams,
so
when I had hoop dreams, I never had these kind of hoop dreams, but I liked playing basketball, enjoyed watching basketball, and I just remember thinking, wow, this Carmelo Anthony guy is
born the same year as you.
Yeah, so same age as Carmelo. So he
was born like 5 days before you, or 2.
Look at that. We're like almost exactly the same age. Melo, reach out, bro. We can go out for our birthdays in New York. No. I was going to say New York because he's wearing the New York jersey, but he ain't there no more.
Whatever team you play for.
Yeah, well, he can come play for my rec league.
He'd probably be the best player in your rec
Our
league.
salary cap is $0. But, no, you kidding me? He would definitely be the best player in the rec league. He'd be the best player in New Brunswick if he came. Well, no, I don't know if I can say that for sure.
I think he can.
Some young dude out there right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm hoping, but he's the best player in New Brunswick.
Okay, let's say it. He's the best player in New Brunswick. Which, sorry, isn't saying a whole lot for Carmelo, I don't think. But, yeah, don't want him on the Raptors. Want him to go somewhere. Don't really want him to just fizzle out and start going playing in Europe or something.
He could play on like a young team like the Suns and just like kind of mentor them.
Hey, yeah, I like that idea, actually. That's not a bad idea. They listening?
Because they have Ayton, they have Booker. I don't know who their 4-man is right now.
Yeah, it's not. Actually, I kind of like that. I kind of can see him wearing the jersey. I can see it. What are you gonna look up if there's any like potential there? Talks.
Yeah, but also the Hawks have Vince Carter. That's another old guy.
Yeah, when I think about that, it makes me feel not as old and busted because he's older than I am, and he's still. Didn't he dunk recently in a game?
He might have. I don't remember.
I mean, it's Vince Carter.
I mean, T.J. Warren they have listed as the Suns' power forward, but he's not a power forward.
Right.
They have Ryan Anderson, but I don't think he's getting minutes.
Ryan Anderson. He's not, eh?
I feel like Ryan Anderson has a similar skill set to 2018 Melo, but Melo might have more experience.
Yeah, I think he could, like you said, be kind of a mentor figure. I don't think Ryan Anderson... That's why I said that. I was like, why did I say his name weird? But then it's because of the Matrix.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't figure it out for a second. So, no, I like that. I hope that happens. And why did the computer just turn on? We haven't been including computer. How are you today?
So I think I should take the final shot.
Wait.
1 part studious and 2 part silly, but I suppose that's normal when you're writing science jokes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, never talk to that thing.
No, we have to always include computer in the podcast because computer is our third. Yeah, we haven't had Jeff around. We haven't really talked about Jeff. So anyone who watched or listened to our earlier podcast, we had a guy named Jeff who was Steven's brother. Maybe he'll come back eventually, and maybe he won't. So Steven's about to take the end shot. He's taking it. Wow, that was the closest yet. So it went off the rim. That was like, yeah.
Off the rim, but like I almost thought it was going to bounce in off.
Yeah, that was like, you were probably half an inch off on that.
Not even.
Okay. So yeah, that was the closest one yet. We still haven't made one. It's been 9 episodes, 9 shots. Steven got real close there. We'll make it soon. We'll got to figure out. There's going to be some kind of celebration. And
I'm getting good.
You're getting good. All right. Well, at least we know it's possible because he made one not during the podcast. So it doesn't count, but he did make one. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Tune in at some point next week. We'll have episode 10. It's kind of a landmark, I guess. Steven?
Yeah, well, it'll be good.
Great.
Let's find a way to make this mic a little louder.
Accelerate your voice. Okay. Thanks for listening. Well...